Hey everyone, HardlyBriefDan here with episode 4 of the October Game of the Month series. This is Detective Dave, and we are going to continue where we left off. First, we started making some we changed our buttons to toggles, and we talked about making a better menu here with the different locations that we can go to, and then we talked about adding an evidence button, where this will display our evidence inventory. Because the idea was to make this like our basically our menu screen or like our inventory character sheet kind of thing, and that we can have it update depending on what we find throughout the case. So where we left off last time, I believe we started creating an inventory, and it was a very simple list. Let me go ahead and zoom in. I'm actually in some other stuff. Let me go ahead and close these out. So here is our inventory, which is just a list type here. I talked about using systems collections dot generic to get it, and basically what we're going to be doing is adding items to this, and so that is going to bring us back to our case generation script where we generate evidence, right? So we have this item type called evidence, and basically what we want to do is create several items, a number of items that are going to be used that we can find each time we generate a case. And what we're going to do now is kind of talk about how we're going to do that and then get into creating that evidence. So basically what we want is we're going to have one type of high. And I'm in the evidence class here. I'm going to go ahead and just type this out. I'm going to comment it out so you guys can refer back to it later on, just in case you're not following along at this time. But the idea is we are going to have, we will create one piece of high what do we call it? High type evidence. So this is going to be like the weapon, right? This will be like a gun, a knife, so stuff that kind of thing. Whatever we can come up with will be like the main weapon, I guess. So what they used, and then the next thing we will have two. I guess we'll say we will have two medium types, and I think what we'll do is 2 low and then 3 trash or something like that. Not sure about the trash yet, and maybe we'll change this to 2 high and then 2 medium. And basically the idea is if you can turn at the end of the case, if you can turn in when we do like our judgment, which we'll get into soon, we can say, the player is going to be able to choose the evidence they want to turn in. So if they turn in 3 pieces of evidence, one of which is the high and 2 are medium, then they're going to get the best score because they've turned in the best. But if they turn in some trash, then they're not going to get anything. Or I guess the score will be lower because they didn't really solve the case with the right material. So we can talk. Now that we know that these are what we're going to be generating in our case generation script, we can go ahead and start working on that. So if you remember, this is the big script right now we have. It's the class is called case generation, and this is where it generates our robber and our key witnesses. And we have 2 key witnesses and a robber. And once we decide on the high evidence type here, we'll be able to figure out like the weapon. So I guess the type of weapon. And what we can do is make another script, because this one's getting pretty long, and it's better to keep these organized so they stay like. Basically, I think the idea people say is usually 1 page. You shouldn't have to scroll too much per script. I have some really long scripts, and sometimes you just can't avoid it. But we'll go ahead and create a smaller one. So in Unity here, under our scripts folder, I'm going to go ahead and create a new script, and it's C#, and it's going to be evidence generator, I guess we'll call it. Yeah, I like that. All right, so what we'll do is open that up in MonoDevelop. Going to make sure I saved all that, and here it is. And we don't need to inherit from mono behavior, so that's the first thing we're going to go ahead and get rid of. I'm going to go ahead and delete the void start and void update functions because these are from mono behavior. And what we want to do now is in our case generation script, we want to go ahead and call this script. And the way you do that is in the class case generation. We're going to go ahead and make a private instance of it, so it's going to be private. It's going to be of type evidence generator. So you see that's our class that we just created. And we're going to go ahead and call this evidence gen script. and we're going to set that equal to a new instance of it. So just like that. So basically we're creating a variable of type evidence generator, and we're applying the object or the class to it. And this is going to allow us to access anything public that's in the script. So a public method or a public variable. And so what we'll do is just to make a little bit less actually, we probably don't even need to do that. Well, what we'll do is in this generate new case here, we'll just go ahead and call this the functions that we create. So you see how we have this main case evidence. Under here, we'll just go evidence gen script dot whatever public method we want. So what we want to do now is go public method, or we want to create a public method in our evidence generator classes, which is what we just created. So we're going to go ahead and say public method. It's going to return an evidence type, and we're going to say generate new high type evidence. So it's a pretty long method name. It's super descriptive though, so we know exactly what it does, right? And like we said, we're right now we're going to be creating one, and so what we want to do is we're going to create a string here, a private string array, and we're going to choose what the weapon is. Well, since we said this is going to be a weapon, we're going to go ahead and choose what it's going to be. So we're going to say high evidence types. I guess we'll call high evidence types. We'll say names. And we're going to set that equal to a string, like I said, and we're going to go ahead and name some things it could be. So like I said, it could be a knife. We'll say it's a gun. We'll say fist, I guess. That'd be a weird one, huh? And I'm going to go ahead and leave that for now. Basically, whatever your heart desires. If you want to get super specific, you can say handgun. I guess we'll do that. Handgun. And I'll go ahead and just do another one. We'll say rifle. How about that? That works. So what this is doing is basically we're gonna randomly choose one of these, and that's going to be the name of our high evidence type, but it's also going to be the type that we refer to. So when we do a case bio, which we haven't done yet, but once we do that, we can go ahead and say our case bio, like the weapon used was a blank, and we can go ahead and look at our high evidence type, and we know it's a knife, so we can just include it in there. So what we're going to do now is in our generate new high evidence, we're going to go ahead and create a temporary evidence variable. So we're going to say evidence, and that's temp ev. We'll call it temp ev. It's going to be equal to a new instance of that, and that's going to allow us to access all those public getters and setters. And so now what we do is we want to set temp ev dot name, or evidence name, I believe it was, right? It's going to be equal to our high evidence names. And you remember we've done this before, right? An array takes an array takes an index to access it, right? So if we said high evidence names square brackets 0, it's going to return knife. So what we want to do is go random dot range between 0 and our length of high evidence names. Right, so what this is going to do, it's going to return a value between 0 and however long your array is. So if you come up with high evidence name, like weapons, like 100 of them, then it's going to go 0 to 100. It's going to randomly choose that. So this is where more variability will come in, is depending on how creative you are in determining the type of items used. Now the next thing we need to do is create a description for it and an evidence type, which again, this is going to be high. So we can do that actually right at the start. We'll go temp ev dot type, evidence type, right? It is going to be equal to evidence dot evidence types dot high. Now we're going to go ahead and create another private string array, and this is going to be high evidence bios or descriptions, I guess, descript like that. And this is going to be equal to another array. Now, this is where you can be really creative or be selective. It's up to you. But basically, and definitely experiment, test out some things, do what you want. But basically, what I was thinking is you can create a bio for each thing. So, let's say knife. If you have a knife, you can say the bio is a very sharp knife with fingerprints on it or something, right? or you could say a handgun with a warm handgun that has been fired. You know, it can kind of be like that, or you can be vague about it and say a strong weapon must have been used for an attack, or I don't know. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Anyways, what I'm trying to get at is saying that you don't have to, if you just want a couple bios that can all be used randomly, then you can do that. Or if you want to assign a bio with the handgun, you can do that. So with a knife. So like if it's chosen knife, then it's going to be knife will give you the same description every time. So if you have a handgun, it'll say like a warm handgun that has been fired. Maybe like that, like the barrel is warm or something. Really up to you. I'm going to do the latter where I'm talking about. There's a couple ways you can do that too. You could actually create a two-dimensional array, which we were not going to do, but just because it'll make it a little more complicated. But you could actually make a two-dimensional array where you have a knife and then a comma next to it where it basically says the description, and then below it would be handgun, comma, and then its description. But what we're going to do is instead of doing that, because this is meant for, you know, beginning programmers or game designers, if you will, we're going to go ahead and create separate biographies or descriptions for each. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the same index value. And actually, I don't like fist because it seems like a very weird thing to have. Okay, so we're going to have knife, handgun, and rifle. So that means we need 3 descriptions. And so what I'm going to say for the first one is, like I said, we're going to keep the same index. So if I access high evidence description 0, which would give us the knife bio, I want to also send a 0 to high evidence names to get knife, right? So we're going to keep that the same. So what we want to do is do our description for our knife, then a description for the handgun, and then a description for the rifle. So what we'll say is a sharp knife with a few fingerprints on it. Okay. That would be the first one, and then the second one will be a warm barrel. No, we'll say a warm gun. A warm handgun. Must have been used recently. Now, this is where your creativity is going to come into, because if you're a super creative person, then you can probably come up with some really interesting descriptions and stuff for this. And then we'll say the long barrel is warm to the touch. Must have been fired. Alright, so now instead of doing this random.range thing, what we're going to do, the way we just did this evidence name, since we're doing the description, I kind of forgot that we're going to do that way. What we'll do is we're going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this random.range. I'm actually going to go ahead and copy the whole thing. Alright, well, actually we'll go ahead and cut it. So just right click and cut. And we're going to create an int temp. Temp index is what we're going to call it. Okay, and then we're going to go equal signs and then control V to paste it. Right. So what we're doing is we're going to make this once. We're going to get a value once. And since these two arrays should be the same exact length, because remember we have a description for each item, the index value should be the same. So where we do this int temp, if it returns a 0, again, if this returns a 0, it's going to be a knife, or it's going to point. When we call high evidence name 0, it's going to point to knife, and then when we do high evidence description, it's going to point to a sharp knife. So we have the same or matching descriptions and names, so they go together. So that's the way we're going to do it. Again, you could do it a couple different ways. You can go ahead and do it like I was saying with a 2D or a two-dimensional array. Maybe you like doing that. Maybe you want to challenge yourself to try to do that. You should definitely do that if you feel so inclined. But we're going to keep it simple and do this. So now we have that. The next thing we want to do is go ahead and choose our I guess that's it. Actually, we don't have anything else. So now we want to go ahead and return this. So we're going to go ahead and return temp ev. And now we're creating an object called an evidence object, and it's going to be a high priority or a high type evidence, meaning it's a weapon. for us. So in our case generation script, I was talking about it before, the way we access that public method, remember we put this public method, public tag on it. We're going to go ahead and call that function using our evidence gen script dot that method in our generate new case method that's in our case generation class. So under this comment here, we have choose main case evidence. What we'll do is go ahead and say evidence gen script dot. You'll see our generate new high type evidence, right? Now there's one issue here, which is we don't have a object to set it equal to, right? Because this public method here returns an evidence type. So what we need to do is go up here, and like we did key witnesses, we're going to go ahead and say I guess we'll say evidence like that, right? And we're going to go ahead and create a public variable. It's going to be of type evidence, and we're going to call this high type evidence. And we know there's only going to be one, so we only need to create one variable. So we'll go ahead and copy that, right? So I just double clicked it, hit Control C to copy. I'm going to come down here where we wrote this evidence gen script dot generate new high type evidence. I'm going to go ahead and hit space bar, use my left arrow, move over one, Control V to paste, space bar, and then equal sign. And what this is going to do is that when this method returns that evidence, it's going to set it to that variable here that's in our case generation script. And now I'm going to go ahead and copy these debug statements up here like that, and I'm going to go ahead and Control V to paste, and I'm going to say generated high type evidence, and I'm going to go ahead and copy high type evidence here, delete these two, and basically what we're doing is we want to see what it generated, right? And type. Okay, so basically what we should see is knife, handgun, or rifle, and then we should see the corresponding description for whatever the name is, and then we should also see that it says high. So now we're going to go ahead and go into Unity. I'm going to load up our main menu scene, which is where we create the case, I believe. And you hit new game. You hit pause. I'm going to go ahead and go to our console, and you see we have this generate high type evidence. We have a rifle. This is the long barrel, is warm to the touch, must have been fired, right? And it's a high type. So we are creating it. I'm going to go ahead and press play again. New game. Let's go see what it created. And you can see it created a knife, a sharp knife. So that's working as intended. So now the next thing we need to do is go ahead and start working on our next two pieces of evidence. So we're going to go ahead and do a public evidence type, and this is in the case generation script, and we're going to call this medium type evidence 1, and public evidence medium type evidence 2, right? So we're gonna have two of these. So what we can do is just go ahead and create the same function, or we can create another public function like this. We'll go ahead and copy this one, and now I'm in the evidence generator class. So we'll go ahead and copy the public evidence generate new high type evidence. I'm just copying that. I'm going to paste it below it, and this is where we're going to work on our new evidence type, or the medium one. So instead of generate new high, we're going to say, hey, generate new medium. And we can go ahead and keep the same temp because it's just going to restart it all. In this case, the evidence type is going to be medium. And we'll go ahead and keep all this the same. But now what we need to do is we're going to be changing high evidence name and description to our new medium one. So what we want to do is do private string array. We'll do high evidence, medium evidence names. It's going to be equal to some things that we'll talk about in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and create the other one. So I have private string array medium evidence descriptions, right? So like that, and we'll set that equal to the string values. Okay, so now a couple things we can talk about. One, we are using a lot of the same code, which can or cannot be bad. I guess it's normally frowned upon because we're kind of repeating a lot of the same code, but it's simple. These are simple functions. It doesn't really matter in this case. But just for future reference, if you see a lot of repeated code, there's definitely a way to refactor it and make it faster and make it most of the time to make it a little bit better. But we won't worry about that for now. But what we need to do is kind of discuss what medium evidence type can be. And for me, I'm kind of thinking maybe like a fingerprint or maybe a note that like admits that they did it. It's going to be interesting because I'm not really sure. So let's say fingerprints. Maybe they dropped something. Maybe like a. Let's just go ahead and write them down. So the first one we'll say is a fingerprint, and then we'll say, let's say a note. Maybe they dropped a note that says they did it. We could do a footprint. That'd be a little harder. So maybe that's trash. What would it be? A photo? Maybe like a photo of them from the camera inside. Photo of person, suspect. All right, and we'll leave it like that for now. And then we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing with our descriptions, right? So we have a fingerprint. We'll say a fingerprint of the suspect, and I'm gonna go ahead and create these. We'll say a note from suspect. That's fine for now. And then we'll say photo suspect, a photo from bank camera. Okay. So now what we need to talk about is we're creating the evidence type, and we can do the same temp index, right? So it's going to give us the correct one once, but it's going to allow us to repeat evidence types, which might or might not be something you want. So maybe you find a photo and you want to say, well, we can't get a photo again. So what you could do is a check and in the next spot. So I'm trying to think how we want to handle this. If you got, what I'll do is we're going to go ahead and create this so that it checks to see what it used last, and hopefully that works. We'll do it that way, and then if you guys, and you should be, this is all ready to go if you want to have repeated evidence. So if you have a huge list, most likely it won't happen. But if you only have very few things, like we have 3 things, it's a pretty high odds that we're going to get 2 of the same objects, right? And we may not want that. So what we'll do is we'll create one evidence type here, and then we'll save this index value, and then we'll create another one. Yeah, that's what we'll do. So one way we can do this is I think we can just create a public variable here that will set to our temp index, and then we'll compare, and then we'll just reset that beforehand. So we'll go public int public int last index. There's a couple. We could actually do a list of items instead, and then just actually subtract. Let's do that. That's the way we'll do it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do a using up here at the top in our evidence generator. We're going to say using system dot collections dot generic. Okay, and instead of these being strings, we're actually going to go ahead and make these lists. So we'll go we'll do private list, and it's going to be of type string. I'm going to go ahead and copy this whole thing. Actually, we'll do it like this. Cut that, paste it, and then I'll go ahead and delete that. And this is actually going to be equal to a new list string. And I think that might throw us an error. So we'll have to check. Looks like it actually doesn't. So basically what we're doing is we're saying, hey, these 3 strings need to be in this list, and then once we use it, we can actually just delete it out of the list. We can remove it. So what we'll have to do is create a temporary I'm trying to think if this is the best way to do it. Alright, we'll do another private list string like that, and we'll say medium Oh, let me just go ahead and just copy this whole thing here. I'm actually going to cut it, paste it, delete that string, set equal to a new list of type string, like that. And what my idea was is that we could store Okay, so what we'll do is we'll grab one first. So we're going to do the same random range, and it's going to be, instead of high evidence names, it's going to be medium evidence names, and I think it's .count instead. Right, so what it's going to do, it's going to count these, so it'll be 3, and it's going to give us a 0 between 3. And then to assign it, we want to go ahead and do a new command called high. It's going to be medium evidence names dot add, and then we want to send it a string item. I thought, we don't want to add dot read. What is it? Oh, I guess we can remove at, and it takes a value, and the index value will be our temp index. So what this is doing is we have a list here of names, and when we call this evidence name, it's just going to remove it, right? So it's going to remove it from the list, and it's going to, so we can only take 2. There will be, instead of 3 from the start, there'll only be 2, and the one that we just used we can't use again. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing with the descriptions. So here we're going to go temp ev. Let me go ahead and press enter so you guys can see. So it's going to be temp ev dot evidence description is going to be equal to our medium ev description dot remove et, which again is going to remove whatever value is at temp index. So let me just go ahead and do this, and then I'll explain it a little bit more. So basically these all have index values, right? So fingerprint, note and photo of suspect have index values. It's 0, 1, and 2. So what we're doing is we're doing the same thing how we did with the arrays, and we're saying, hey, look at these, count them all. So we have 3. So we want to generate a random number between 0 and 3. So it'll give us 0, 1, 2, or 3. And then once we get that value, we want to say, hey, okay, remove whatever string is at, let's say 0, return 0. It's going to say remove whatever string is at index 0. So it's going to point to this fingerprint string, and it's going to remove it from the list, and it's going to set it equal to the evidence name. And we're going to do the same thing with the description. And then therefore, when we come back to create another one, hopefully they don't reset. I'm not exactly sure. Hopefully they don't, but we'll be able to create another one with a different value. So what we're going to do now is we create this public generate new medium type evidence. Is we're going to go in our case generation script, and under our high type evidence, we're going to go ahead and create our 2 medium types. So what we'll do is medium type evidence 1 and 2. I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and I'm going to paste it here, and I'm going to set that equal to our evidence script dot generate medium type evidence. Now we're going to do the other one. So medium type evidence 2 is going to be equal to our evidence script dot generate medium. And what we'll do is we're going to debug one statement, and it's just going to be the name for now. Oh, I guess we can do 2. It wouldn't matter. So we'll go ahead and do 2. Going to go ahead and copy this. Sorry, I'm copying and pasting a lot. Hopefully you can kind of keep up, or hopefully you guys are used to me doing that, because I do it a lot. But basically I just copied these, so we're going to display the name and then the description. And this is just so we can see, hopefully, that they're different. Now, we might run into a problem, and if we do, we'll go ahead and try to fix it. And it looks like we actually got an error, so we can't explicitly convert type void to string. I guess we can't remove. Oh, I thought remove at return an item. Okay, well, let's look. So we're going medium. The script, well, I'll do names dot. Oh, you know what? We need to, okay. So basically what we do first is you get the index value, right? So we're going to go ahead and say, hey, get this value. And maybe, is it brackets? Okay, so what we're doing now is we're going to go ahead and get the evidence name first, and then we're going to remove it. So, because I had that wrong, I thought I had it correct, but I didn't. It makes more sense now. Hopefully, I'm still correct. Yep, okay. So what we need to do is, basically what I was doing before, which was wrong, was I was just automatically removing it, which obviously just deletes it. So what we want to do is go ahead and retrieve it first, using the same way you would call an array, but then below it we're going to go ahead and remove it. So we'll go at medium evidence names dot remove at and then it's going to be our index, temp index. And I'm going to go ahead and copy that. So using Control and Shift and then the left arrow, you can highlight bulk like objects, so like whole statements, and that's what you do. And then it's going to be names, it's going to be descriptions instead. So we'll do like that. Okay, so again what we're doing is we're generating an index value, and then we're going to say, hey, point using that index value, find the point to whatever's in evidence names in that index value, which is, if it's 0, it would be fingerprint, and then give us a fingerprint description, and then we're going to go ahead and remove them so we can't do it again. Now, if everything works and I press play and I hit new game, hopefully we have no errors, and we'll see. Okay, so we created a photo and we created a note, so that worked. I'm going to go ahead and hit new game again, and we just want to see something happen. And this is because it ran out of things to do. So what you'll have to do is reset everything. And for now, we can talk about that in the next video or when we get some time. But basically, when you hit new game once, it's going to create a random script. It's going to create a random case, right? And the game is actually losing its initial strings here, right? Because we're manipulating the first one to the point where it's losing the info, but it resets after you restart the program. So the way you could handle that, which again we don't need to worry about right now, we just know that it's working. But the way you handle that is just creating a public static, a private static, or a public. I guess it'd be a public static one, meaning it's the only one, and that one's unedited. So basically, what you do is when you create new medium type evidence, you would pull from that, and you'd set that string, that list of strings equal to a new list of strings that you can then manipulate the new one and delete from. And that way you can actually just continually click new and create several of them. But we don't need to do that. We just know it's working. So I'm going to go ahead and press play again, and I'll show you again. We'll create a new case. We can see our photo. We have a photo and a fingerprint. And let's just do it again. Let's see if we can get a random. Oh, shoot. I want to see if we can get something other than a photo. Okay, see, this time we got a note and a photo. So, again, it'll be more random. The more things you come up with, the more random it will be. And what we'll do now is I'm going to try to quickly go ahead and create some new, the other couple functions. So we need 2 low and 3 trash. So in our case generation, we'll go ahead and create the 2 low, I guess, for now, and then we'll create the trash later. Maybe if you guys got some ideas for that, we can do it. So it's going to be low type evidence 1, public evidence, low type evidence 2, and why did it do that? What did I say? It was a 2 or 3? A 2. Okay. So now we have our 2 low types, and now in evidence generator, I'm going to go ahead and copy this public evidence, generate new medium, like that. Again, if you want to refactor this and create a better, shorter, unused, only used once code, please do so. But just to make it a little faster, I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these 2 medium ones, these lists, and Control V to paste. Oh, also, we don't need this last index here anymore because we're not doing that. We're using lists instead. I'm going to go ahead and change this to low evidence names instead of medium, like that. Go ahead and get the medium one out, and we'll do low. And so this one's actually basically set up. We need to go ahead and change our type to low, and then change all of our names. So instead of medium evidence names, it's gonna be low, low. Just go ahead and go through and delete them all. And we'll do low description. Let's see, low and low. So that was really fast. Now we have low evidence. It's really quick once you can copy paste and get all that code done. Like I said, if we had written this, I'm sure there's a better way to write this, so it's a little better, but it's not needed for now. So now we also need to change the method name from new medium to new low. Like that. Control S to save. Go in the case generation. I'm going to go ahead and copy these these 6 lines of code here, the medium debug statements and evidence generation type. And again, this is all for testing. We're going to get rid of these debug statements later, but we want to see what we're making first. Going to go ahead and copy with Control C the low type evidence 1, and I'm going to replace the medium type evidence 1 with low type, like that. And I'm going to go ahead and change them in the debug statement. Gonna go scroll back up and grab the evidence 2, Control C to copy, double click on the medium type evidence 2, Control V to paste, and do that with the other 2. Now we haven't changed the names, and that's because I really don't know what we want to do for low evidence, but I guess we'll say footprint will be one, maybe like a money, and then we'll say a pen for now. Again, leave me your ideas. I don't know what to do since we've kind of changed over to this random stuff. If you guys have some cool ideas for evidence, write them in the comments below, and I can definitely use them. We'll say a dirty footprint on the floor might not help. So just like a little hint to the player. Money, we'll say it's a dirty, crisp dollar bill. There are lots of them around, right? So crisp dollar bill, lots of them around, meaning it kind of implies it's not that important. And then we have a pen here. We'll say a pen looks like it's not used much. So basically, we're just trying to get the idea across to the player that these really aren't that important, but maybe they think they are. All right, so now we have that. I'm going to go ahead and go back into Unity here. I'm going to press play. We're going to create a new case by hitting new, and we immediately have an error. So let's figure out what the error is. Looks like we run into an error with fingerprint note. Something with our high evidence type. So let's look. Medium, low. Oh, I know exactly what's wrong. And in our case generation, I forgot to change our generate new medium, where we have low type evidence 1 is equal to evidence genscript dot generate new medium. It should be generate new low. Like that. Control S to save. Hopefully you guys have all this. If not, I know I'm kind of moving kind of fast, but you can go ahead and pause the video and make sure it's all the same. Again, at the end of the month, I will release all these scripts so you guys can copy them down and have a complete game for you to be finished. All right, let's test it one more time. Go ahead and press play. Hit new game. We don't have any errors, so that's really good. Going to go ahead and press pause. We're going to go ahead and look at the console, and you see that we've created a rifle. It has a long barrel, warm to the touch. We created a fingerprint item. This is a fingerprint of the suspect. A note from the suspect. We've also created a pen. Looks like it's not used much in money. Crisp dollar bill. There are lots of them around. So we have a couple types of evidence. These are going to be placed in a spawning inventory that we'll talk about next, and then we're going to be randomly placing these within the scene and allow the player to pick them up and look at them. So that'll be in the next video. I'm working on some artwork. It's pretty ugly, but hopefully I'll have it done. We can move on to the bank robbery scene, and we should be finishing up the game fairly soon, so I'm really excited about that. But anyways, please like, subscribe, comment, share the video if you can. Let people know. Trying real hard to teach the community, the Unity community, how to design games and how we can design stuff together. So I appreciate all the support, and I'll talk to you guys next time.